Okay, so this is the second video now looking at international trade. In the first video we looked at countries who can produce more competitively, may have an absolute advantage by being the cheapest, and they can compete much more than other competitors. However, for a lot of the time it's not actually possible to be the cheapest, so we tend to think about the comparative advantage. So when we think about comparative advantage, we think about the benefiting from trade relies not on absolute advantage but on the comparative advantage. And the underlying principle here is that countries should specialise according to the relative costs of production of goods or services. So we're thinking about the differences of producing costs and services within their own economy rather than actually looking on a global scale. And we think that even if one country can produce all the goods more cheaply than another, it's still possible for trade to be beneficial as long as there are relative difference in costs. And as we can see from this chart here between the two countries, we have country A, which is a more advanced country, and we have country B, which is more of a developing country. And we can see the number of items we can produce for 1 unit of resource. So we can see that country A, with 1 unit of resource, they can produce 4 units of coal or possibly 8 of MP3s. And then we see on the developing country they can produce 8 units of coal or 2 units of MP3. And the reasons behind these numbers are seen in Porter's diamond, as we looked at in the last video. So if we look at this example in more detail, so if country A produces 4 units of coal, then it actually costs them 8 units of MP3 players. The cost is 8 over 4. So if you remember when we studied opportunity costs before, in terms of the cost we're thinking about the lost revenue. So if we produce 4 units of coal, we miss out. Our opportunity cost is we lose the revenue from making these 8 units of the MP3 player. So the fraction here is 8 over 4. And in country B, we could produce 8 units of coal, and the opportunity cost would be 2 units of MP3 players. So we'd have this fraction of 2 over, or 2 divided by 8. And it's actually relatively cheaper to produce coal in country B compared to country A. And then if we turn it round, totally reverse the argument, we could think about the MP3 players. So in country A, producing 8 units of MP3 players, it costs them, the opportunity cost is 4 units of coal. So again, as we can see, the fraction is 4 over 8. In country B, they can produce 2 units of MP3 players, and the cost to them is 8 units coal. So we can actually see it's relatively cheaper to produce MP3 players in country A compared to country B. So it's actually looking to see where's the comparative advantage here. So if we start by thinking then of the benefit of trade, and we're looking here specifically bilaterally at these two countries, country A and country B. So if we think about the pre-trade exchanges to reflect the opportunity costs, so our costs are very much determined by these opportunity costs we face. So country A, 1 unit of coal to 2 MP3 players, and country B, 4 units of coal to 1 unit of MP3 players. So in a trade situation, the market price may actually be 1 to 1, for example. So country A benefits because the coal costs 1 unit of MP3 players rather than 2 units. So A would therefore put its resources into manufacturing the MP3 players and uses these then to purchase the coal, and country B buys the MP3 players. Country B benefits because MP3 players cost 1 unit of coal rather than 4. And yes, the example I've given you is a very simplified example of bilateral trade when we're trading between two countries, and it's also just showing two items, so it's a nice clear situation. What the point is that, say, country A, by using MP3 players to pay for coal from country B, it's much cheaper for them to do this rather than use their own resource to produce coal and forgo the greater production in MP3 players. And for country B, it's reversing this. And we will look at some examples of this and work on some activities when we're in the class this week. If we consider the benefit of trade, so countries that can benefit from trade when they specialise in products in which they have their own competitive advantage. So country A has a comparative advantage in the production of MP3 players, likewise country B do in coal. So it's better for them, it's cheaper for them to access goods by specialising and trading to access in other benefits. And other benefits can also increase this competition. It can do this globally. It can actually involve in driving innovation in the features and services. It can actually really improve the prices, improve the services for consumers. It really helps them concentrate, to trade, to specialise. So if you want to compete, you have to provide goods and services at a competitive price, i.e. being a cost leader, the cheapest available, or providing goods value for the services you're offering. So trading has a lot of benefits, and very shortly we shall look at the next video.